Hi everyone, Diane here. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to be doing some interesting colour mixing, which I hope you're going to enjoy. Now we're going to get started straight away, so don't go away, just grab your coffee and sit back and let's get started. I have a set of paints here that I put together. I could call it my custom palette. In fact, I did. I think I wrote that on the front here, 2025 custom colours. And inside we have got various paints, all of which are quite nice ones, and they're all in little pans. And we have some Michael Harding, some Daniel Smith, some Quoz, some Holbein and some Old Holland. And this is what the swatch looks like. I always recommend that if you are going to be making a custom set, or even if you've just got one that you've bought and it comes all nicely laid out, make a swatch like this showing you where you've got what, because otherwise you'll inevitably forget what's in each of these little squares, because they all look the same. You can't tell, can you? You can't tell what these are. They're mostly greens, but some of them aren't, and there they are, revealing their character once they're watered down a little bit. So that's just a tip. Make sure you've got your swatch lined up with your paints. Now, you know how hard it is to decide on a colour palette, that is to say, the colours that you're going to use in your painting. I always find that very difficult, but I like to work with a restricted palette. And today I was just looking at this thing here, and I noticed that there were 6 paints in a row, 2 on the top row, 2 on the next row down, and 2 on one below, which I thought would make a nice painting. So I picked them out and I've swatched them here. So you can see the colours we're going to be working with today are these: Quinacridone Purple, Quinacridone Rose, Piemontite, that's one of the Daniel Smith, what does he, I don't know what he calls them, I can't remember, but anyway, a Daniel Smith colour. Then Venetian Red, Green Gold and Bright Green. Now on the face of it they look quite vibrant, don't they? But here's the trick. What we're going to do today is we're going to do something that has a nice vintage, kind of nostalgic sort of vibe, colours that are more, not so much the modern colours of today, which are pretty striking. And although we love those, sometimes there are days when you don't necessarily want to be, you know, knocking your eyes out of your head, so to speak. So one easy way of doing that is to buy yourself a tube of buff titanium. I have a tube here. I haven't used it very much because it hadn't occurred to me until now just what I could do with it. But I've been experimenting today. And if you go over to Patreon, and if you are a member of Patreon, you'll be able to see today, a bit later today, well, actually, it'll be earlier by the time I do it, you'll be able to see me using the Daniel Smith Buff Titanium, talking a bit about it and experimenting with it and seeing if you can make your own, which you can, actually. So don't worry, if you can't, say, lay your hands on a tube of this, you can do it with something else. So I'm going to squeeze some of that out into the middle of my Daisy palette there. This is just buff titanium, which the colour that they say is in here is PW6 stroke 1. PW6 colon actually 1, which is called, now what is it called? It is called Unbleached Titanium White. Make of that what you will. We'll talk about that as well on Patreon, or if you're a member on here, the same video will be going up for members only. Now, first thing I have to do is sit down, and I'm going to move some of the paint from each of these half pans into a section on my palette here. And we'll just pick it up like that and put it down like that. And I know some people will probably feel that I'm wasting paint because I have to wash my brush off in between. But, you know, life's too short to stuff a mushroom, as Shirley Conran said once. And she did affect my life. I've mentioned her before, actually, because that expression, I don't know if she made it up. So that's Quinacridone Rose, that's Quinacridone Purple. And then this is the bad boy in the set. This is Piemontite, which is a Daniel Smith colour. And it's just a sludgy mineral, probably granulating kind of colour. And I picked these 6 more or less at random. I saw them sitting there saying to me, Diane, I think you should use me. And they all said it together. Use me, use me. This is Venetian red. You wouldn't think it. It looks like burnt umber. This one does. No, burnt sienna. Sorry, burnt sienna. But it says it's Venetian red. So whatever. And then this is green gold. From Michael Harding, I think that one is. Okay. Now you could go ahead and do a painting from these colours neat straight out of the tube, and it would look glorious. It would be bright and cheerful and harmonious, because you would blend some of these colours together to make muted down colours, like you could put purple with green, and you would have an interesting sort of, well, I'm going to say muted again because I can't always think of different words. But yeah, so that would be that. However, what you can do as well, which is different and fun, I was actually thinking about this morning and I was quite excited to come to the studio and explore this thing. I may have to top those up as we go along, it just depends. And I've got my buff titanium in the middle there, so I'm just going to stop that from polluting it. Okay, and I'll show you quickly what these colours look like when they've got buff titanium in them. So here we have quinacridone purple plus buff titanium, which is a lovely, delicate, lilac-y kind of colour. It does go a little bit more opaque because it has got white in it. In fact, it is mostly white, but you can overlook that because it's no different from painting with gouache. Almost the same kind of effect. So the quinacridone rose gives a lovely dusty rose. If you put a little bit more of it in, it would be even paler. Then the Piemontite, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that. You never hear these words spoken, do you? Now that's a lovely beige. Can't odds that. And these ones I already pre-mixed with buff titanium, by the way. So that's why they're coming out like this. And then we have this nice, soft, rusty colour. And then this is green gold mixed with buff titanium. And of course you can mix and mingle. There's nothing to stop you taking a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of Venetian red and a little bit of green gold and adding buff titanium to that. And there we are. Bright green has really lost its, vibrance and has toned down quite significantly, whereas the green gold has actually brightened up, I would say. So those are the dulled down colours. And if you ever want to remember this, you would just write up here plus buff titanium, which, as I said, is a pigment which is called unbleached titanium white. And they just decided to call it buff titanium because it sells better. So there we are, that's that. So I can go up there. And now I'm going to take my watercolor paper. I'm going to use Meeden. This is 10 by 7 sheet. I don't know if you've ever noticed that sometimes when you've been taking sheets of paper out of a block, after a while you get a bit of a build-up of glue down the side here, and you just need to take a very sharp knife and cut that off. I enjoy doing that. You just have to do that because otherwise it interferes not only with the appearance of the painting while you're doing it, that is, but also it tends to stop the paint from going right up to the edge. It can be annoying. So I didn't quite get all of that one, I don't think. Let's about the best I can do, I think. Okay, that's better. Now I could, if I wanted to, put washi tape around the outside. Now I actually can. Let's put this, just to give me a narrow edge around the painting when it's finished. Right, now the one I'm going to use as inspiration for this is a painting of mine that I did some time ago. And I'm just wondering how I'm going to do this. Today I'm painting with my little dishes, you may have noticed. I have got loads of these dishes. It's no good having just a couple. It's not, doesn't work, because this technique requires lots of dishes. So let's get started. Let me find a large round brush. This is a Princeton Aqua Elite, size 12. And what I'm going to do is I think I'm making this up as I go along. I heartily recommend you do the same thing. I'm going to take some water. It's a good start, isn't it? And I'm going to just put that on the paper. Life is so much easier since we became able to buy these blocks of paper, because before blocks came in from Meaden, and it was Bauhong, wasn't it, who started it, and they started actually making them affordable. They'd always been available, but they were jolly expensive. But now with the Meaden paper, I know you probably think that I'm in love with somebody who works for Meaden or something, but really I'm not. It's just that it's a good product and I like to use it, and I think it helps people to just get stuck in and do something, because it's so easy to be afraid of your paper when it's too expensive. So I'm going to pick up a bit of this dirty white colour and mix it up a little bit in my little dish here and make it a little bit more liquidy. And I'm going to put this all over. This is wet in wet wash. And we'll just put this unevenly. You could use a bigger brush. It would go more quickly. Should you do so, it would be a quicker job. It doesn't matter how long it takes. But just make sure you get it all on before it starts to dry, because we've got another thing we're going to do next. So might as well use that all up. So we've now basically tinted the paper, but it's wet. Okay. And then I'm going to pick up some of these colours here, and there probably won't be enough. I'll probably have to mix more. And I'm just going to put in some areas of colour. And I'm not going to worry about keeping them clean and pure. I'm just going to go ahead without washing out my brush and just put these shapes on the paper. And you can say, oh, they look a bit like roses, or they look a bit like peonies, or whatever, and they probably do. And pick up all of this, and then I'll, oops, bit of glue, and then I'll mix something else. So we're just basically giving a background there. And we're going to leave that to dry. That's just my background. We will leave that to dry, and meanwhile I'll mix up some more of these colours. And oh, I sit down. So we'll start off with pick up some of the buff titanium. I keep forgetting its name. Now, rather than keeping on washing off your big brush, which we're going to use to pick up all the buff titanium with, you can pick up another brush and just drop the pigment in and mix it. Okay, like that, and see how the colour changes. And you might then think, oh, that's a bit darker than I wanted, so I'll have to pick up a bit more of the buff titanium. Can wipe that off on the edge there. Mix that in to make it a little bit lighter. Okay, so I won't mix that thoroughly because I don't need to. But when you test that, if you go to a piece of scrap paper and you just test that, you can see what a glorious colour that is. That's lovely, isn't it? So there we are, that's that one. And then the next one is Quin Rose. And you'll find that what you're creating here is a palette which is not unlike the Art Nouveau palette with all these pastel kind of colours. And I've let that one be a bit paler. That's a real soft, it looks like makeup almost. It's a really soft, dusty rose. Okay, so we put that there. Then our next one is the Piemontite. Waiting for it to dry. So you can do this while you wait for it to dry, right? So that's a nice coffee colour. Then we have the one next to it, which is Venetian red. I haven't really decided what I'm going to paint yet. So the Venetian red should be a kind of warm, soft orange colour. I'll try that one. I forgot to test that one. A sandy shade there, I would say. And this one is that colour. Okay, and then the greens. And we might, when we come to doing the painting, we might find that we need to add some purple to one of the greens or something like that in order to make it darker if we feel we want that. But for the time being, we'll just go with that. Okay, let's put a bit more of that in there. Right, so I shall get my hairdryer. Okay, so that's dry now, and I'm going to take my relatively large brush again, this Princeton size 12 Aqua Elite, and I'm going to reinforce these flowers a bit with some of these colours. And then we'll paint some leaves around it. Okay, so this one, just keep it really simple. We could put a little blob of lilac in the middle there, and we can do another one down here, similar. We'll make that a little bit less vibrant. I don't want it that bright. I'm not going to try very hard to make any particular shapes. What I suggest is that you just make a shape that you like. Okay, when you have done a shape, if you're happy with it, and if you're happy with the colour, just move on to the next one. And if you get runs and things going on in there, that's good stuff It's all good stuff. And what do we want down here? We probably want a bit more of this over here. And we can do I've said recently a couple of things that I feel are important is to, and this is important for me too to remember, paint, allow to happen what wants to happen. Allow the colour to come out of your brush that wants to come out of your brush. Don't try to force it, and don't try to make it happen in a different way to what is natural to you. Paint what comes naturally, because we're doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for us. We're not doing it for Instagram. We're not doing it for anyone else. Okay, so there are my flowers. Okay, looking all very floral. And now I'm going to try with some stems and leaves. And what I'm finding immediately here is that because I've added this buff titanium, the paint is going on quite thick. So I'm just lifting some of that off now. You don't have to throw it away. You can put it back in one of these little dishes. It's going on quite thick, and that's because of the white in it. So we have to be a bit careful about that. So we put the stems in. I add a little bit of purple to that to change the colour a bit. Maybe I'll put a couple of leaves up top here. A learning process when you've got a paint with a different texture. Put another one next to it, perhaps. Don't be afraid to wash out what you've done if you don't like it. Just wash it out, leave it to dry, and then you can paint over the top of it again in a minute. But what I want to do is find a softer version of the green. I don't want to go over there if I don't have to. Just concentrating a little bit. I think you probably know that, you probably know by now that usually when I get to this point in the painting, I tend to go a little bit quieter. I'm just going to put a purple flower in the corner there. And maybe a bit of pink coming over the top there. And I'm going to go to the pure green gold and drop some of that in the watercolor way, you know. Dropping in and allowing it to run. So you can do that on top of this basically unsaturated, desaturated they call it, when you add something like buff titanium. And we'll get some of this as well. And put plenty of light, bright green into I think at this point what I need to do now is also to give it a bit of a dry. Okay, Okay, so I'm going to move those ones away for a minute and bring this palette over here now, because I think I want to do some highlights or darks, some darks, let's say. And we might want to put in some dots and maybe some, I need to mix it with a bit of this one too. And I did think to myself, I might, for the finishing touches, and I think I probably will, want a bit of black. So I'll pop a bit of black there. I might need that. I think it's probably necessary for things like stamens and so on and so forth. You could put some quite strong black ones here and there. And then we'll go back to the purple for here. And maybe the pink. And perhaps we'll put don't really know how any of this is going to turn out, but we'll just keep going. Now if I add black into green, that was green, no, that was the bright green, so we need a bit more of that. Then we get a much darker green, like that. And we can start thinking about veins. If we can dull that down a bit with some purple. You can also use that colour with a bit of purple, a bit more purple perhaps, the centre of that flower. And this one here needs dots. Maybe this one here would like some and then perhaps we'll make a bit more mauve in the bottom of it there. That one too, perhaps, like that. We're not following any particular botanical rule here, as you probably noticed. But we do need some veins to make them look like leaves. You could put some dark lines on the stems as well, if you want to. It's a bit tricky, though, to keep a straight line. And then when we've done a little bit of that, we might want to go back to our purpley colour without any buff titanium in it, and we could just strengthen some of the areas on some of the flowers. probably best when you do that if you go wherever it was darkest already. Otherwise you end up kind of doing away with all of the subtlety that you... Ooh, that's not subtle. With all the subtlety that you had engendered. Now for me this has been quite a learning process. I haven't painted with a desaturated palette before, so I'm learning as we go along too. And finding this quite interesting. I'm going to just take the tape off now, if I can remember where it was last, and see what it looks like. I'm not expecting anything terribly. Why is nothing ever easy in this life? Yeah, I'm not expecting a Michelangelo to come out of here, needless to say. But what I do want to do is see where we're at and whether we need any more sharp accents like with the black. Which I think we probably do. Quite like the idea of giving them anthers or stamens or whatever they are called. But what I never like to do with my paintings these days is to overwork them. And I don't like them to be perfect either, because I don't know what that even means. So I don't aim for perfect. I hope that when I come back and look at it later, after having been away from it for a day or two or a month, then I'll think, yeah, that was all right, actually. I'm not completely unhappy with that. I'm just going to try not to smudge anything, but just try to finish off some of these veins. You don't have to do them on both sides of each leaf. You don't have to do them at all if you don't like them. But they can sometimes work. If you get to this point and you think, oh, I really don't like what I've done at all, which I don't think like that at the moment. I'm not going to be judgmental about my own work. Then you could come into the whole thing with some, don't like that, with some pen work. You could use pens over the top. You could also do some dry brush work like this. You certainly can continue until you're sure you've done enough. I think it's not a bad idea to sort of do half of each leaf slightly different colour. Where are we? So we do this one here. I quite like that effect. It reduces the contrast of the veins, which I feel I've made a little bit too heavy. It's not always easy to keep things under control, is it? Right, well, I don't know what we think about that. not quite finished, perhaps. Perhaps we could darken these ones a little bit. Okay, so that's an experiment. I think it's very interesting using the buff titanium to desaturate your colours. I'm going to try this again another time as well. I'm not sure if I like it yet. I'm going to try it again. I'm just going to dot in a few white dots. Not sure if this is a good idea or not, but you can't tell until you've tried it, can you? Yes, I think that's probably good. There's something about dots that sort of takes the eye into a slightly more, I don't know, another place. So we could put some dots on some of the leaves as well. I don't know whether that would be a good thing. I actually quite like that effect. I think that is definitely, to my eye anyway, and everyone's different, that is actually adding something, giving a more kind of, I don't know, another dimension. I didn't really think it would. I don't know. What do you think? Tell me in the comments below whether you think that's a plus or a minus. I promise I won't be offended. This is a Molotov One for All acrylic twin. It has a smaller point on one end and a bigger point on the other end, and you can do quite big sploshes like that. Yes, you could see that. You see big sploshes like that. Don't think I want those on there. But yeah, and you can also, of course, with this, you can correct, like they do on, when you buy a book nowadays, I think I mentioned this the other day, an awful lot of corrections have been done to the paintings that you see inside. They weren't actually like that in the first place. So you can do that for yourself on your painting. You can come in with the white and you can say, oh, I just wish that that petal was a little bit different there, and you can just alter it a bit, correct it. So what they do is they put it on Procreate and take out all the mistakes. Takes away some of the fun of it, doesn't it? And that's the thing, you see, that's what you can do with this. It's like a magic eraser. Well, there we are, you see. That's how they do it nowadays. Can't believe a thing you see. It's happened very quickly, hasn't it? It's taking away of the truth. Yeah, I can see what it was about this that was bothering me. Some shapeless elements, elephants. Okay, have to stop playing now. It's time for lunch. So, oh dear, once you start with this, you can't stop. That's got to be sharpened up a bit. Okay, I'm going to let you go now. That's an idea to play with, isn't it? Yes, well, that's the way up it goes. Hope you enjoyed that. I thought that was quite educational. I learnt a lot anyway. So I'll let you go and I will see you again on Thursday. Hope you will be with me again for another splash around in the playground. Bye for now, everybody. Bye-bye.